The first regional power interconnection between Kenya and a neighboring country was done in 1955 with the commissioning of the Kenya-Uganda 132 kilovolts power line, which connected the power generation at the Owen Falls hydroelectric power station. For a long time, this line served as the main power grid, passing through Tororo, Musaga, Lesos, Lanet and Nairobi. Nonetheless, in the spirit of regional power trade, the 5 East African Community member states have since 2003 been interconnecting their power lines to improve supply, stabilize access and foster trading in electricity across national borders. In September this year, though, the 5 EAC member states pulled out of a proposed regional power sharing pool in order to connect with a larger power pool, a move that has been well received by Kenya Power and the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, KENGEN.
You do require a big market, even when you think of attracting investors in this power generation, because someone is looking at a bigger power plant that is to be installed so that you can benefit from the economies of scale. And if you do not have enough demand, then you may not be able to take that capacity.
And those projects are fairly advanced. They have been funded. That's something very, very important. They may not have broken the ground for some, but they are at advanced stages in breaking the ground. The duration for delivery has already been determined.
According to Dr. Chumo, the addition of Egypt, Ethiopia, Democratic Republic of Congo and Sudan means countries can trade across borders and also save in capital investments and operating costs.
If your network was covering East Africa, you could require capacities such as the one we have at Chumo Control to manage the entire network within East Africa. But as is at the moment, we have a Chumo control station in Uganda, another one in Tanzania, in Tenesco. We can do with one. And so the rest of the savings are very clear.
In the next 2 months, Kenya will be trading power with Rwanda, providing 30 megawatts. Similarly, Ethiopia and Sudan on board have encouraged market-driven power trade. Implementation plans are underway for the new 127-kilometer-long Kenya-Uganda link, which is estimated to cost $51 million. This link is expected to increase the power transfer capacity between the two countries to 350 megawatts. The line to Uganda would then connect to Rwanda and Burundi and should be done by the end of 2016. The Kenya-Ethiopia link, which is a 612-kilometer-long transmission line with a power transfer capacity of 2,000 megawatts, is at an advanced stage of implementation. It is expected to be complete by 2017 at a cost of $762 million.
It's already started with the Ethiopians constructing the part of the transmission line that is within their country, and the Kenyans constructing the part of the project that is in Kenya. And when that project is completed, to have the capacity to transport as much as 1,000 megawatts of power. Although initially, I understand that we may be exchanging just about 200 to 400 megawatts of power with Ethiopia. So again, that would develop the trading of not only power, but also the goods that will go in through the road system.
It had been proposed that the Kenya-Tanzania power interconnection start from the Isinya substation south of Nairobi and pass through Arusha before ending at Singinda in Tanzania.
A lot of the countries in the region have traditionally depended on hydro generation. There was a time in Kenya, for example, more than 80% of our power was from hydros. And that is why in 2000, the year 2000, when we had a very serious drought, we had a crisis because our dams dried up and most of our power was coming from the hydros. So we ended up contracting very expensive emergency power.
Maybe some drought occurs in Uganda. If we were interconnected and Kenya has additional capacity to be able to give Uganda do not have to ban or to import thermal expensive energy. Kenya can give it to them. So you engage in that kind of power trade without any issues.
Kenya, which relies heavily on hydropower, geothermal and other sources of renewable energy, aims to expand installed capacity to 5,000 megawatts by 2017 from about 2,500 megawatts currently.
Geothermal was contributing about 1,600 megawatts. The hydro component was lower than that, in fact, minimal, because there were no hydro sites which had been studied that the government planned to develop, even though we may see a few more in future, but geothermal will take the lead.
The experience of EAPP has, however, shown that contributions of member states and member utilities are not sufficient to cover recurrent and development budget, which is among the core challenges.
When you look at the amount of financing required for this project, it has meant that even when you have a plan to bring in power plants in time to meet your demand, the coming to financial close has not always been easy. So in many of these countries that we have in the region, they have not been able to build adequate generation to meet the power demand.
Some projects may be agreed upon by countries, but there are other areas of interest like environmentalists. You know, we've had environmentalists lobby some projects at a level where, you know, donor funding and other sources of funding are delayed, you know, as you wait to agree with those environmentalists.
In the last few years, the country has been investing heavily in renewable energy sources, notably geothermal, solar and wind. The country now plans to increase geothermal capacity by another 460 megawatts, these being among the milestones achieved.
In total, we completed a project of 280 megawatts geothermal project in last year. Now that project was the biggest single project, geothermal project in the world, you know, which was quite, you know, something to accomplish. But I think when you look at it as Kenya, one of the biggest things that we're happy about is the fact that by bringing in that project, we were able to displace an equivalent plant or generation that would have come from diesel plant.
Progress is ongoing in terms of regional power connectivity. In February next year, we'll be seeing Kenya exporting 30 megawatts to Rwanda. And of course, there is the Ethiopia link, Tanzania and Uganda. But the thing is, we cannot compare this to a country like Germany, whose power capacity is much more than Africa as a whole. Will we ever get to that or not? Perhaps these are some of the questions that will be answered during the WTO talks. Reporting for Channel 1 WTO Talks, I am Meline Miendo at the Nairobi substation.